You know, one of the most undervalued treasures in the life of a human being today is their due focus level. In fact, I would say that the way you treat your attention, your mental energy, is a direct reflection of how seriously you take your life. Most people are not failing because they don't have potential. They're not failing because they don't have intelligence or talent or even opportunity. They're failing because they are distracted. We live in a time where distraction is not only common, it's normalized. We scroll endlessly. We jump from one app to another. We consume information at a rate faster than we can even process. Our attention spans are shrinking, and with so is our capacity for deep, meaningful living. When your focus is scattered, your life becomes scattered. When your mind is always reactive, never still, you start to lose the ability to make intentional choices. And without intentionality, how can a person ever build something extraordinary? One of the most powerful truths you'll ever come to realize is that you become what you repeatedly give your attention to. That's it. That's the secret. If you give your focus to negativity, you become bitter. If you give it to comparison, you become insecure. If you give it to entertainment, you become distracted. But if you give it to purpose, growth, and remembrance of Allah, you become someone unstoppable, someone anchored in clarity and direction. This is why our deen emphasizes not just what we do, but what we focus on. The Prophet Muhammad was sent with a mission that required unwavering focus, surrounded by opposition, threatened from every side, mocked and attacked. Yet he didn't let his attention wander to distractions. He remained centered on his purpose. And that was not accidental. That was a choice. You and I have to make the same kind of choice every single day. What am I giving my attention to? You see, your focus is like fertile soil. Whatever seed you plant in it, good or bad, will grow. That's the psychology of attention. Whatever you continuously engage with begins to shape your internal world. That's why Shaitan doesn't necessarily need to destroy you with major sins. He just needs to distract you, keep you busy, keep your thoughts noisy, and you'll never make the time to reflect, to connect, to act with purpose. When you protect your focus, you're actually protecting your potential. And more than that, you're protecting your soul. Because what you focus on feeds your heart. And if the heart is fed with junk, it begins to darken. The Prophet taught us this when he said that sins leave black spots on the heart, and over time those spots accumulate until the heart becomes sealed, unable to distinguish truth from falsehood. That's not just about actions. That's also about input. What are we allowing into our minds, our hearts, our lives? And it's not just the obvious distractions like social media. It's also the inner distractions. Overthinking, constantly worrying about people's opinions, being obsessed with things that don't serve your Akhirah. These are internal forces that erode our ability to focus. And if you don't guard your focus, the world will take it from you. Companies, platforms, algorithms, they all want your attention because attention is profit. And so, if you don't actively protect it, you will passively lose it. One of the most important ways to begin mastering your focus is by protecting your input self. What you see, hear, read, these things matter. You have to take ownership of what you consume. If you wouldn't eat something harmful, why would you mentally and spiritually consume things that poison your focus? And just as we protect the inputs, we need to intentionally design our time. A life without structure is a life open to chaos. Schedule your prayer. Schedule your learning. Schedule your rest. Don't leave your most important acts to chance. Because what isn't scheduled becomes optional. And what's optional is eventually ignored. A focus doesn't leave their day to randomness. They wake up with a mission and they defend their time like a soldier on duty. Also, let me say this, being focused doesn't mean being perfect. It doesn't mean being rigid or never enjoying life. It means being present O. It means being connected to your why. It means saying no to what is meaningless so you can say yes to what is meaningful. And that's hard. It takes courage. But that's the price of greatness. Focus is not just a productivity tool. It's a spiritual practice. Every time you bring your wandering mind back to your goals, your dhikr, your salah, your vision, you're training your soul to stay awake in a world that wants to numb it. And so, I say to Yug, guard your focus like you would guard a treasure egg. Because it is one. Your life is not determined by your wishes. It is determined by your focus. And when you begin to master that, you'll realize you're not far from extraordinary. You're already on your way. Remember the saying, whatever owns your focus owns your future. Choose wisely. So once you've made the decision to protect your focus, the next question is focus on what? Because protecting your attention is only the first half of the equation. The other half, perhaps the more important one, is having clarity about where that attention needs to go. You see, the most dangerous thing in life is not failure. It's you succeeding at the wrong thing. It's climbing a ladder your whole life, only to realize it was leaning against the wrong wall. That's what happens when people move fast but without direction. They're busy but not effective, active not fulfilled. And the reason is simple. They never took time to define what extraordinary even looks like for them. We live in a world where people are constantly being told what success means. Social media gives us a blueprint: fame, wealth, status, aesthetics. But here's the problem. Most of that definition is external. It has nothing to do with what the soul is craving. So many people chase these metrics, and when they finally reach them, they feel more lost than before. Why? Because they never ask themselves the deeper question, what kind of life would actually satisfy my soul? You can't build an extraordinary life on someone else's definition of greatness. You have to get clear on your own. And for us as believers, that clarity begins with one word, purposely. Allah didn't create us aimlessly. He didn't send us into this world to simply exist and pass time. He created us with a purpose, and that purpose is not just ritual. It's meaning. It's alignment. It's living in a way where your intentions, your efforts, your goals, your dreams, they all orbit around the pleasure of your Creator. When your definition of extraordinary is rooted in Dunya alone, it will always be fragile, because the Dunya by nature is temporary. It changes, it breaks, it deceives. But when your definition is anchored in Akhirah, when you say to yourself, I want a life that brings me peace, that serves others, that brings me closer to Allah, then every part of your life becomes infused with something eternal. And that's when things start to change. Clarity is power. Without it, you become like a ship sailing without a compass. The waves of life will throw you anywhere. But with clarity, even the storms can't shake you. You know your direction, you know your why. And that why gives you energy that motivation alone cannot give. Now some people say, but I don't know what my purpose is. And that's okay. You don't have to figure out everything overnight. But you do have to start asking the right questions. What makes me feel alive? What strengths has Allah given me? What problems in the world do I feel drawn to solve? What values do I want to embody? And most importantly, how can I use this life to prepare for the next one? Because let me tell you something profound, why your purpose is not just a job. It's not just a career or a title. It's the impact you live. It's the legacy you live. That could be as a teacher, a parent, an artist, an entrepreneur, a student of knowledge. But it starts with intention. And in Islam, intention is not a small thing. The Prophet said, why actions are judged by intentions. That's not just a Fitch principle. It's a philosophy of life. If you're sincere, if you're clear about what you want and why you want it, Allah will open doors you never imagined. But you have to define it. Write it down. Reflect on it regularly. Don't live reactively, waiting for life to hand you meaning. Take responsibility for the direction of your life. Look at the best people, those who changed the world. They all had this in common aim. They lived with clarity. They knew their mission and they organized their lives around it. And they didn't let the noise of the world distract them from it. Let me bring this even closer to home. Ask yourself right now, if today was your last day, what kind of life would you regret not living? What kind of impact would you wish you made? Whose life would you have wanted to change? What would you wish you had focused on more? That's the life you should be building now. Because every day you wake up is another page being written. And one day those pages will be your legacy. Make sure they tell a story worth reading. And I'll say this too, you don't need permission to start. You don't need perfect conditions. You just need honesty. Be honest with yourself. Strip away the noise, peel back the expectations, and ask, what kind of person do I want to be in the sight of Allah? That's the trust definition of extraordinary. Not likes, not followers, not achievements, but sincerity and impact. When you have that clarity, focus becomes easier. You're not just busy, you're intentional. You're not just productive, you're purposeful. And when your purpose aligns with your Creator, you will find barakah in places you never imagined. So don't chase success, define it. Anchor it in your values, root it in your faith, and let your life become a reflection of your purpose, not a reaction to the world. Now, once your focus is protected and your direction is clear, the real work begins. And that work, let's be honest, is not always exciting. It's not always glamorous. This is where a lot of people fall off. They protect their focus. They find clarity. They even set beautiful goals. But then they stop. Why? Because deep down, they're still relying on motivation to carry them forward. And let me tell you something from both a spiritual and psychological standpoint where motivation is overrated. It comes and goes. It's fleeting. It's driven by mood, by energy, by emotion. But what actually builds an extraordinary life is something much more powerful. It's called good discipline. Discipline is what keeps you moving long after the initial excitement wears off. It's what holds you steady when your feelings become unreliable. Because feelings will fluctuate. There will be days when you don't feel like praying. You don't feel like working. You don't feel like being kind, being patient, or showing up for your responsibilities. And yet discipline is what says, wait, do it anyway. Not because you feel like it, but because it's who you are. You see, discipline is not about restriction. It's about liberation. It frees you from the control of your lower self, your nafs. And our deen recognizes this deeply. In fact, Islam is a way of life built on structured discipline. 5 daily prayers, fasting in Ramadan, zakat, hajj. These are not occasional bursts of spiritual energy. They are routines, structures, repeated actions. Why? Because Allah knows how the human soul works. We need rhythm, we need commitment, we need consistency. The Prophet An was the most disciplined human being to ever walk the earth. His day was not driven by impulse or emotion. It was driven by purpose and routine. He woke up before Fajr. He engaged with people sincerely. He rested when needed. He worshipped with humility. Even in hardship, he never allowed his emotions to disrupt his values. That's real discipline. And that's what allowed him to carry the weight of a mission that changed the course of history. Now understand, discipline is hard. That's why very few people live extraordinary lives. Because it's easier to be average. It's easier to sleep in than to wake up for tahajjud. It's easier to scroll for an hour than to read a book or engage in dhikr. It's easier to react than to restrain your tongue. But easy choices lead to a hard life. Difficult choices repeated with discipline lead to a powerful, fulfilled life. And here's a deep truth. Bubab discipline is not something you either have or you don't. It's something you build. You build it like a muscle. Start small. Be consistent. Don't aim for perfection. aim for progress. Discipline is about showing up every single day, whether or not the conditions are ideal, whether or not anyone is watching. That's where transformation happens. Not the big dramatic moments, but in the quiet, invisible acts of commitment that nobody sees except Allah. From a psychological perspective, this is called the compound effect. Small actions done daily produce massive results over time. One page of Quran a day, one sincere dua, one honest conversation, 1 hour of focused work. They may not like much in the moment, but over time, they shape you. They refine you. They elevate your character. And let's not ignore this. Discipline also requires sacrifice. You will have to let go of some comforts, some distractions, some relationships, some old versions of yourself. But remember, every act of discipline is an act of self-respect. You're telling yourself, my purpose matters more than my momentary comfort. My future matters more than my excuses. Else, in reality, you'll always serve something. You'll either serve your discipline or you'll serve your regret. You get to choose which one. And the choice is made every day in the little things. One of the secrets of the righteous is that they didn't rely on bursts of energy. They relied on consistent effort. That's why the Prophet said, the most beloved deeds to Allah are those that are consistent, even if small. There is a profound spiritual wisdom here, because consistency builds character. It teaches you to keep going, especially when it's hard. And in those hard moments, your sincerity is tested. Your patience is tested. Your trust in Allah is tested. And that's where growth happens. But let me be clear. Discipline isn't about never falling. You will fall. You'll make mistakes. You'll get lazy, distracted, even discouraged. The key is not perfection. The key is returning. Returning to your principles. Returning to your intentions. Returning to your routines. The disciplined believer is not the one who never slips, but the one who never stays down. And the beautiful thing is, when you commit to this path, Allah helps you. He puts barakah in your time. He strengthens your will. He multiplies your effort because you're showing Him that you're serious, that you want to grow, that you're not just interested in greatness. You're committed to it. So if you're serious about building an extraordinary life, you need more than passion. You need a system. You need structure. You need self-control. And that's what discipline gives you. It turns inspiration into reality. It turns dreams into actions.